There he is. What up, bro? Long time no see.
Right?
Yeah. Cool. I think, there we go. Mikey's grabbing a quick smoke break to try and center himself.
Sweet.
Since he is stressed that he's not getting this, but I'm like, just, like, you know, I had him clone my project and jump into it, and I was like, find ways to fuck with it and break it while I'm on team call and eating lunch, just goof off with it.
Mm-hmm.
So plan now that I just told him is we're going to refactor the same app I'm working on instead of creating a new one, and we're going to refactor it to have some navigation ability, and I'll show you all how to make a fetch call to an API and do the same shit, which is we get an API response that happens to be an array of objects, and we fucking map that shit out.
Dope. Let's get it.
And this will be all 3 major React labs. So you'll have a repo that I'll be pushing to as we code along together. And you can use that repo as your reference material as you try and finish out these labs.
Okay.
But I think you already have definitely better, considering your first Chirper lab was almost there, minus a little bit of refactoring we had to do. You have a definitely stronger grasp than him, because evidently he didn't even know where to start the other day, and I was like, uh-oh, it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem. So that's why, like, all the times, instead of seeing me code like anything in the return, like I just write up the whole boilerplate for the component, and I'm like, okay, this is it. This is like what the component is supposed to look like. Are you good? This is what the component is supposed to look like. Don't even stress about what's going to happen inside of it yet at all. And then go in there and do something simple like, hello from X screen, or hello, I'm X component. That's an H1, and put that into wherever you want to render it. And if that works, hell yeah, you've got to start. Add some potatoes, baby. You got a stew going.
Right.
Yeah. Delayed.
Nice commentary.
Yeah. Like, I think I had a video of that. I was showing off to my buddy. Oh, shit, where would it be? I think it was like lols.jpg or something. Nope, that fucking failed. There it is. Oh man, I never showed you that either, did I? This is when I was in the boot camp. This is what I attempted my second frickin' week. Links in your Discord. I'm just showing him the Final Fantasy covalence thing I tried to do. Remember that? Yeah. I attempted to make this my second week in the course in pure jQuery, and then I never got around to finishing it. This is like a screenshot video of what I made in jQuery. Yeah. And then I learned about React. And then I learned about React and tried to make it in React, and I failed miserably because evidently all the jQuery.animate stuff doesn't work in React, and I couldn't find a good solution around it, so I gave up on hope. And like I was telling Michael and just now you, like this is exact the stuff I'm doing now, where I'm like, I have written a bunch of components that just say hello from X component, and I'll try to render them to make sure everything is working as I expect. So like, this is the progress I made last night on my buddy's little project I'm trying to help work on. I mean, it's nothing special to it at all. It's just like, I have a bunch of components. I've linked them together. Right? I can't tell where the screenshot ends and the screen share begins. There we go. But it's the same methodology I'm telling you guys,
Sweet.
Just like build out some really basic ass shit and then just build it up as need be. And don't stress about having it all working from the get-go. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see. Go away. That should still be here. That's good. I think I closed, so let's npm run start. And we're back in it, right? Seemingly. Okay, there we go. Project is back up and running. So React, navigating in React, like it's fairly simple in an index.html page. You typically have an anchor tag, an A tag, right? And it has an href attribute, and the href can say go to / whatever page, right? Like you can tell it that it's supposed to go there. It's all locally coded and it works. But React sucks in the sense that because we can't natively display it in the browser, we have to do that npm script which spools up a development server that translates our React code to ES5, pushes it to the browser, and the browser sees that. So if we tell the browser, go to our go to our about.html page, it's going to go, or our about component, it's not going to, what the fuck's that? I don't know what the hell it is. Like, I don't know how to navigate to that because I have all this code in a giant file, and I don't know where the about component, like the about page, is. Like, it can't pick that out. So we have to have a way to define what our routes are, how to get to them, and then how to make our anchor tags navigate to those routes. Like, we have to link them together. So we define what all of our navigation is going to be, and then we have a tool that links them together for us. And then that way, if we go to localhost 3000 / that could be our home page, localhost 3000 / about could be our about page. I mean, whatever we as you can see, I already have one right there. Like, we build it out custom. So, like, you know, these are all things that we program ourselves. So we're going to scaffold and think, like, what is our web page going to need? And I figure we can just go ahead and convert this guy and have a chirps page, maybe a home page, and we can do like an API testing page, where if we click on it, it navigates to a component that renders our API info, or a component that renders everything we see here. And then, like I said, that should be all the reference material you all need in this project to get you all through the rest of the React lectures and their stuff, their associated labs. So let's just dive on in, shall we? Anytime we have to install a new React package or a new node package of some kind, we have to restart our server. Because if we install some new information, it's not going to know what that is when it's currently running, right? So we're going to Control-C that sucker, clear it out, and make it easy to see. And this is not built into React, and it's maintained by some people that used to work for Facebook, I think. I'm fairly sure. Either way, it's the most up-to-date and maintained way of doing React navigation there is. And it's called React Router. And in particular, that is the base library. But in order to navigate the DOM, like we would with an anchor tag, we have to connect React Router and the DOM, kind of like how we have the React DOM library that ties two together. These two do the same thing. And to get access to it, you do an npm install -- save, because we are telling this has to be a dependency for this thing to run. So we do -- save as a flag. That way, if I push this code and I didn't do save, and you guys try to clone it and then npm install it on your own machines to try and check out my work, you wouldn't be able to, because the package JSON wouldn't know to download a React Router DOM, and it wouldn't know to install it, and then for the whole crap thing, the whole app would just crap out, you know? So this is telling it this is dependent for this app to run. So if someone else comes in and npm installs, you have to download this into your node modules. And so the module is React Router DOM. Woo. Crazy, right? So we're going to install that sucker, and as I'll point out, in a second, this should update as well once it finishes downloading. Let me make sure this is not. There. I'm going to tell her it's just Team Retro now. There we go. All right, cool. So it's officially installed. And let's check out our package JSON, and let's reload our package JSON. Oh, that fucking burned on me. Check out our node modules. I'm surprised it didn't pop in here, but because of the way Create React App is written, it might be different than normal behavior. You can always just go into your node modules and just manually check our React. All right, what the fuck? They like legit not install? I do the right directory? Yeah, crack a with the boys. Okay. Well, that backfired spectacularly on me. Not that I'm not used to it at this point. Nothing ever works the first goddamn time.
You have to refresh VS Code for it to show up?
There it is.
Oh.
Okay. Guess I had to restart the whole thing. So like I said, it does install it and saves it as a necessary dependency for the sucker to run. And so because we ignored this when we pushed to GitHub, this package JSON informs the npm install exactly what it has to do. So it didn't entirely backfire. Hell yeah. So now we have access to it. Oh boy. We're going to do a little bit of refactoring. Now that our app's getting more complicated, I'm going to keep app more simple than this, because I could add to it here, but then it's going to become like 100+ lines, maybe up to 200 lines once we're done, and I don't feel like dealing with that. So we're going to move some stuff out into components for us. So I'm going to copy and paste this entire thing, and we'll call this one chirps.jsx. Or rather, it doesn't make too much sense. We'll call it chirp screen, because it's a screen that shows a component called display hello, which displays our chirps, right? That's the relationship. This whole thing is a screen that is showing an input field and a various number of chirps. So we will name it as such. We're going to replace app on the class and the export to be chirp screen. Okay. Everything else should be the same. The route for display hello is still in the same directory, so that doesn't need to change. So back in app, we're going to go for something real crazy now. We don't need a constructor anymore. All this has been copied down. All that's gone, right? We're going to leave our fragment. That's all gone. That's all gone. Now, moment of truth. This import is deprecated because we don't need it here anymore. Import chirp screen from chirp screen. And then let's put that bitch in there. There we go. Got to run our local server for React to run, but the freaking pictures are in the way here. There we go. I keep moving around like y'all's Zoom images. I don't like having it minimized. It feels weird just talking at my screen, not having faces to look at, even though Michael's right in front of me. But I like to at least look at Nathan nodding off as I make a dumb joke.
I had to minimize all mine because I couldn't see the screen.
Yeah. So we have to restart our local development server because after doing that package install, we have to make sure it knows what it is and it's all wired up. Please fucking work. Yeah, all right. Hell yeah. So localhost 3000 still takes us to the exact same thing we had coded. All we had done now is we moved it to an entirely new component. And so how fucking bonkers would it be if we did two of them? Oh, shit. No. Sorry, I just pasted the whole app in there by mistake. I meant to do this. That's what I had copied. Now look at that. All that fucking work we did, we can just double that shit if we wanted to. And they maintain their own fucking state, dude. How sick is that? There's one, and scroll back up, not there. So that's React right there. Like, we have coded something that does a bunch of tasks for us, including a child element of these cards, and now we have two instances of the badassness we just coded together. I mean, I think that's awesome. I really do. Especially if you have like a really cool component that did something like that, and you can move it all over the place and import it wherever you need it to be on several pages. Like, I already have a couple plans to that personal project I'm doing that'll have like a spinner loading component while my API loads that will have. So I think I showed Michael, but Nathan, my project that I was showing you about how I'm thinking in React, where I just make like a basic screen that says hello from X screen. Mm-hmm. If you didn't notice the title, it said Scott Stapp Pick'em League, as in the guy from Creed.
Yeah.
All of our stuff is an inside joke from the band Creed, and pretty much all of our picks and lyrics and like status boards we've been doing via email are all puns on Creed lyrics. So I want to have literally like a picture of some crosses going around Scott Stapp's face as a loader, and that's going to be an awesome component. And I don't want to just build it one time and never see it again. So I'm going to import that as a loading spinner on every fucking page while it runs to make sure everyone can see that shit. Right? That's like the same thing we're doing here. Like, we put up this awesome chirper thing, and we can just bring it in where the fuck we want, and it's going to handle itself and just run. And even if we had 50 nested components inside of chirp screen, it doesn't matter. If we bring in 2 more chirp screens, that's 100 more components that are being handled by themselves inside there, right?
Yeah, super
that's
cool.
That kind of component-based thinking I was going on about. That's where it's so cool. And even though the syntax is a nightmare to deal with, it has some serious power under the hood once you figure out the workflow. Okay, so React routing overall. Like I said, we had to program something that determines what the routes will be defined as, and eventually we'll link back to them. And it doesn't require state, it just requires a couple special tags that come with React Router DOM. So the next part I'm showing you guys, I'll leave a comment, that way when I upload my code, you guys will not look at it and go, why did you do this again? This is required syntax. We're going to import a couple things. We're going to do it from React Router DOM. Now, there's no universal thing we can import. It has several things inside there. And when you have several things, kind of like I did up here, we put it inside of curly braces. And actually, I have that on the wrong side, don't I? There. The first one is going to be called browser router. And you can see it already pops up, right? Browser router. As you can imagine, this is the component that says, hey, this is going to be a browser router component. We're going to be defining some routes inside here that you will have to know where to navigate to. So you pretty much, you can nest routes in child components, but until you'll get to that kind of level, I do not recommend doing it. Make your app simple and have your routes all defined in app and just keep them here, because this will be a lot easier structure-wise to do so. For simplicity's sake, we typically give browser router an alias to make it easier to call in multiple occasions. And as alias, all you have to do is take browser router, which is programmed for us in React Router DOM, and bring it in as router. There we go. Bring it in as router, or whatever you want to call it. Pizza, doesn't matter. This is an alias to make things easier to write instead of having to write browser router 1,000 times.
You still have to capitalize it, because I saw like IntelliSense has had it as a lowercase. Do you have to have it uppercase?
Because it is a JSX element component, got to be capitalized. Okay. The same issue we ran into earlier when I tried to render app when it was lowercase, and I was like, you can't do this. JSX components have to be capital letters. Okay. Same shit here. That's why it's capital, because they're going to be JSX tags.
Got it.
Yeah, motherfucker, what was the rest of them? There was switch, and this is what I was talking about, where imagine like an old operator from like the 1950s, like a lady or a gentleman, more likely a lady if it was 1950s, and she'd be like programmatically like taking and connecting people's phone lines together based on what they're trying to call. She's working what's called a switchboard. I mean, I know what that is because I saw it in cartoons growing up. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that or not.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. Okay, cool. That's what's happening. So the board is what we're building in app.jsx, and then the links that we're going to have are the ones that connect the board to the component that's supposed to render and where it's supposed to go. That's the whole link between them. That's the way I think about it, and I still think about it that way to this day when I'm coding these things out. So the switch is the board we're going to make. And then each individual route inside of the board, inside of the switchboard, is called a route. Surprise, right? Okay, so the router, aka the browser router, has to wrap the entirety of your app. Otherwise, it will not work. There's two ways to do this. We can go in here and wrap this guy in browser router by importing it up here. But I think I told you guys to keep this one like this. Don't overcomplicate this guy until you get later on in your React developing careers. So we're going to go back in here, and we're going to replace fragment with router, which is just the alias for browser router. So now, other than this entry point for app, our most parent level element is the router. That says anything within this will know what routes actually are. That's why it has to be on the highest level parent component. Okay? So now we're going to get rid of this for just a moment. Now, believe it or not, we have to program our board. And how do we do that? Well, we call it a switchboard. Boom. Easy so far, huh? Eh? Eh?
Yeah, making sense.
Going to our code back here, nothing's loading now. And that's to be expected because we removed it all. And the warning is just you've imported these things but haven't used them. It's useless. Ignore that. Doesn't matter. So first thing is first. Our very first route. Boom, done. But it's not programmed with anything. So like we have this tag here, but it doesn't define anything whatsoever. So nothing happens still, as expected. There's a couple attributes or props, if you will, that are on route. One of them is called the path. As you saw, I was trying to autocomplete there, right? The path is a string that we define as our route that's going to be in the URL bar of your browser. So when you go to like covalence.io/ like that, that is the home screen for Covalence, right? If you went to Covalence like about, it leads to the next component to render, right? Is that kind of making sense what the path is? Yeah. And these things match in order. So I will show you this in just a moment, but for now, this is our most root level path, our simple one. Just the basic slash, which over here, if there's no slash, it counts as the same thing. Those match together. This counts as the home slash right here. Same thing. There's another prop you can pass into your route that you're programming called component. Not uppercase, ignore that. And it's JavaScript. And as you can imagine, you tell it, when you go to path home, this is the component that should render. So we have chirp screen right here. You do not put in, you put in a JavaScript variable and not a JSX element into component. So we're going to say render whatever this component is, chirp screen, when you go to path home, aka slash. There we have, gentlemen, our most simple possible router. And would you fucking look at that? There it is. I told you guys localhost 3000 slash was the chirp screen. I've defined it as such, and it has now popped up as such.
Crazy. Mind blown.
I know, right? Now, let's do something else. Let's do something real crazy. New file. We'll call it test.jsx. We're going to import React from React. It's going to be a basic thing that's going to be const test as a function that takes diddly shit, returns something, which will be JSX, obviously. We're going to export it before we forget. Test. Up we go. And it's going to say H1. Oh my fucking God, I'm a new screen. Simple. Now, let's import it on this side. So import test from this directory /test. We're going to replace chirp screen with our new test, god damn it, testing please, to components. Okay, got it. Now, let's add our second ever route together. Path. I think /chirps makes sense to me by you guys, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Component is going to be the chirp screen that we had just had going. Self-closing tag, and we now have programmed our second ever route. So it's sitting on home right now. I'm not sure if this will work, but aha. So we did /chirps, but for some reason it still says, oh my fucking God, I'm a new screen. Remember when I said earlier, it matches in order. So it goes localhost 3000 /. It goes up to the switch and goes, I have a /. That means load component test. And then it figures it got a match and stopped running. That's why it stopped on test and did not go to chirp screen, even though we typed in /chirps. Because it matched this, it did not work its way down to this. Two solutions. Because it works from the top down, we can just move our more specific paths to the top and keep our generic ones in the bottom. And now that still says /chirps back in Google Chrome, it should automatically load the chirp screen. Voila. It works as expected now. But if we delete chirps, it matches to home, and there we go. Because, you know, it goes /, which does match this, but it doesn't see a C, so it goes, okay, so it's not this route. Then it goes down to this route, matches the home /, loads test. It's fairly clear?
Yeah.
How it works from the top down?
Yeah.
There's a second way to do this to fix this particular issue, which they did not fucking teach us this, but I'm teaching you guys because it hit me in the ass hardcore when I tried to do these labs. There is another property on route that is a Boolean value of either true or false, and it is false by default. And you can say exact. So what did you imagine that would do?
The exact thing you type in.
Yeah, it goes right there.
Right. It says this has to be exactly matched. If it has anything else after it, then it's probably not this path. And so saying exact is the same as saying this. This is a syntax I was showing people the other day. This is the exact same as writing this. So if it's not there, if that value is not there at all, underneath the hood is getting rendered as this. Exact equals false. That's the default behavior.
Got it.
And so if you switch this to true, it works. Or we can just say exact. And if it identifies the word exact is on there as an attribute or a prop rather, it automatically knows that it flips itself over to true. Yeah, there it is. So we go to home, as expected. We go to /chirps. We actually get there this time with the old setup. There you guys have React navigating. Now, it can get fun, to say the least. Let's say, ooh, I got an idea. Let's make it so these card links, when we click on them, let's have them go to the test screen. Yeah?
Okay.
Sound fun?
Okay.
I think it's fun. Let's go. Let's fucking do this. Let's kick this thing's ass. So, let's see. So, chirp screen does all the stuff for the inputs and the posting and whatnot, and we know it goes down here and maps out some chirp cards for us, essentially. So that's where we're going to be doing our work. In display hello. So you always have the anchor tag in HTML that would either locally or go to a separate website navigate things for you as needed, right? Well, because we're loading through a server that's translating code, it doesn't have the code that's being translated doesn't have all these apps like these relative paths that we can be specifying. But we coded them out here. So how do we get access to this path from within our React code, which might be a component, some 15 components down the line? Our friendly folks at React Router DOM have coded a special import for us that will forever replace the anchor tag in all of your local React code. And it's called the link tag. And we do as such. As a matter of fact, for some comments for you guys. With several exclamation points to drive that point home. That's going to be some kind of component from React Router DOM. React Router DOM has it called link. And there you go. That's it. We have now imported and can use the link element from React Router DOM anywhere inside here. So as I said before, let's just do a hard code of replace this with the word link. Replace this with the word link. It's not going to work, but let's see what happens, right? Oh, a lot of fucking shit happened. You must specify the to property. Oh, okay. So that's something that's required on every link tag. So it replaces the href. I guess down here I'll put that, yeah. Makes sense. 2 is equal to right? href, the same thing. Yeah. So 2. And then we said this is going to lead to the test component, which I believe was the home path, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Class, thank you. So it should link to the home page whenever we click on this card link on any one of the cards. You ready for this? Let's try the second one. Actually, your images are in the way. I'm going to move you to the right. Come back. Click on the page. Ready? Yeah. That's it. That is like an hour long of them rambling about React Router. And we pulled it off like in, what, 20, 30 minutes maybe? And it's so much easier.
Wow.
There's some more advanced stuff. I'm not quite done yet, but at its most simple, that's it. Your parent level app is where you program your switch, which has to be in a router. And the router has to be encapsulating your entire application. Anything outside this router will not know what these routes are and will fail. That's why typically router is at the top most level component and wraps everything within it. Then anywhere else inside of our entire application, any child component, even if it's 30 components down the line, we can import a link tag, have a to property that leads to a route we have programmed, and we can get there. Okay, I don't know what that is. Yeah, that's at its core. That is the most simple possible thing we can do. Now, this is where it's going to get fun, and this is your first foray into parameters, route parameters. So as you guys have been cruising around the net in your experiences, here's some examples right there. Actually, mail/user/0, and I'm the only user in my Gmail account, and that's a parameter. So if you saw like about, or like, yeah, about, and then like Luke. So like the about page has the list of all the instructors on Covalence. And if they had a parameter option where you can offer the route a parameter like Luke, it knows that when Luke is called in as a parameter, then we can use that on a component within that route. Let me show you what I mean, because you'll see it more with ID. So let's say I was ID 0. You go to about/0, and it knows that if you hit a route about that has an optional parameter on there, you go somewhere other than the original component we had tested. So let's write another new component. It's going to be just like test. File, test params.jsx. Import everything. Test params. Test params. Oh my fucking god, I'm testing params. Which is just shorthand for parameters, that's all. Nothing special about it. Because it's going to be part of our overall navigating, we're going to import at the top here, test params from this directory, test params. Sick. Let's see. Route, path equal. And let's say we're going to be testing it off of chirps. Because we can have be on route, but typically the optional parameters are built on a list of something when you want to access an individual part of that list instead. So because we have a list of chirps, let's say if we do chirps / and this is where the parameter comes into play. This is, again, so syntax, name it whatever you want, comment. So what I mean by that is at the end of the route, you do a colon, and this says the following variable will be some parameter that we're going to be passing in and accessing potentially. So let's just call it ID. Doesn't matter, like we can call this pizza. Doesn't matter. This is just some variable that will ultimately be stored with the value of whatever the parameter is. It'll make more sense in a second. And the component will be, believe it or not, the test params. Okay. Because I have it written this way, I'm afraid that because this is more generic, it'll match that first and never actually get a test params. But as usual, we tried something, which means we got to try see if it breaks, right? Chirps still works. If we go to chirp 0, didn't get there since it matched this path first. So let's just say fuck it. Take the easy way out, add the word exact. Hey, okay, there we go. And automatically refresh, because then it did not match chirps and stop. It went to params 0. Okay, so you're wondering, what the fuck's that going to do for me? At least I thought so at first. 0 is our ID param, the colon ID. And the number 0 here is accessible now in the testing params fucking component thanks to the router and the link tag. What? What you say? Well, let's check it out. In test params, because we have now navigated this through the browser router, which the browser router knows that chirps / colon ID is some kind of parameter called ID. It doesn't know what its value can be. It's typically stored as a string, but it can be a number, and it can be a name. It doesn't matter. It's just whatever you want to specify it as. So when we navigate to /0, it goes, okay, param ID is 0. Got it. And this is where it gets kind of stupid. I'm not going to lie. The ID is passed as a prop. Like so. And we're going to expand on this a little bit. All right, you ready for this? And we access props. Props. Dot match. Dot params. And what do we call our parameter on the other side? Like what variable name we gave it?
ID.
Right. That's where it matches up. Params.id. Holy fuck. Okay, that's a fucking catastrophe. And if this was a class-based component, it'd be this. which should be a goddamn nightmare as well. And then that right there is what is in a functional component, right? So props.match.params.id. All right, Luke, what the fuck is this? Well, let me show you. Interesting, right? So props, we already know, is an object that's passed into a component if information is passed. Match is the object from the matching of this guy, or this guy rather. This is the match. It's matched chirps/parameter ID. That's the match object. On the match object are some params that we have specified, aka parameters. We have specified one parameter, and we have called it ID. Hence, props.match.params.what we called it. And we now have access to that parameter inside of a child component via our browser router. So if we change this to pizza and this over to pizza, let's colon pizza to specify this is an optional parameter. Same thing. 21, 21. Luke W rather, Luke W. This is stored as a string. So anytime you do params dot your parameter name, your parameter key, it returns as a string. Cool?
Cool.
You're probably wondering what the fuck's the point of that. I'll show you momentarily.
Right now,
Yeah. Sorry. So that's what a parameter is. And like I said, programmatically, as you're going around, the most sensible way to think about it is like you'll have a route that is meant for one instance of a chirp and one that might be meant for all chirps. So that's the best way to do this. What's another Bootstrap class I can bring in that's like big and fuck off looking?
Jumbotron.
Yeah.
Jumbotron would be good. Jumbotron would be good. Just to make sure it's like really clear of like where it's navigating, what the differences are. You know what I mean? Just so you don't see two separate cars and like, what, they look the same, bro. Jumbotron. Let's do a fluid Jumbotron. There's less code with it. Okay. We're going to convert test params to be something else. We're going to call it single chirp, especially since that's what we're going to be treating it as in just a moment. So because I've updated this end, I don't have to update this end. Because I have changed the name here, I have exported it as single chirp. I've only exported one function. So when I import it here, it doesn't matter what I call it. I can call it whatever I want. I can leave it as test params and it's still going to work, for example. Still works. As long as your declaration and export are consistent on one page, your import is consistent on the next page, it doesn't matter. So if we rename this to that and are consistent in its usage, our import statement still works and is not broken, as you can see. A little fun tidbit that I thought had to stay the same all the time, but it does not. But it's not going to help you when you're doing crap like this and you have no idea what it's actually doing, right? So we're gonna be consistent in our naming of it and call it single chirp. And for laziness, I'm gonna leave the file name as test params, but thankfully that's only one spot that's there and hopefully it doesn't confuse y'all. Okay, so our single chirp now is going to be pasting in Jumbotron, fucking React, make me do this shit. Now that I've done this in here, let's check out if it's working. Indeed it is. Chirp ID. And then as you can imagine, this part will be, if you want to say it with me, props.match.params.pizza.
Oh yeah, I forgot to rename it.
Yeah, got y'all. Got it. All right, cool. Let's double check that's still working. It is. Even though that's not an ID. I mean, there we go. Hey. Okay. All right, all right, all right. So we're done fucking around in here for now. So I'm going to close app.jsx to clean up the screen a little bit, clean up all this workflow. Our display hello is just the chirp cards, right? And each chirp card has a link on it that goes to the home page. Well, we can make this a bit more programmatic than that. So in the parent level chirp screen, this is again where we had the inputs wired up to state. We had the universal array where we do some kind of API call, but we simulated one here anyway. And this is where a lot of our more complicated logic is lying. And all this really does down here is get info if we type it in and add it to the list if we do. And it just dynamically renders via map a bunch of cards that do some work for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because I have now accessed the index in this array, we have the index of each one of these, right? So hello, Nathan is 0, Michael 1, Luke 2, Eiserman 3. We can additionally pass that down as another prop. We'll call it ID, just to be more consistent as we're moving forward. We'll pass in index. So I will come back and refactor this to be more similar to an API call in just a minute. I'm just showing one way of doing this. So index is a unique number because we used it as a key, and it just represents each particular index position in our array. That's all it is. We all agree on that, right? And I'm passing it in to display hello component as the prop ID, and that's how we access it on the other side. So over in display hello, let's just, before we even fuck with the link, let's see if it says, we're going to call this chirp link, and then it was props.id. Now it's not chirps.id because chirp was the object that had author and text only. So I passed in index under its own prop called ID, hence why it's just props ID, right? Right, okay, okay. So that's good, always a good stopping point. We did a little bit of work. Let's go see if it worked. So we're now on the chirps page, right? Okay, so do we all agree that those index positions match up to their spots in the array?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, okay. Let's see, I'm actually curious about this.
Oh, if you add one to it, is it going to automatically adjust?
Yeah. Ready? Everything updated naturally. Everything's ID stayed with it. So what the hell's the point of that? Well, check this out. We can link to /chirps/ and we're going to convert this to be a template literal because I hate doing string concatenation. But something is now broken for some reason. What has occurred? Why does it not like that?
You have to do bracket?
Oh, yeah, it's JavaScript. I'm retarded. There we go. /chirps/ props.id. So now we're going to navigate to /chirps, and the parameter will be the ID of the card we click on. So on the other side, I'm going to bring back app now. So when we click on any link in any one of the cards, it'll take the ID of that card and navigate to chirps with the ID of that card, which is props.id, and the individual card, and they'll load a single component which loads whatever this ID parameter is. So if I click on this one, we should see a Jumbotron that says chirp ID 2, right? Yes, it worked. Let's see, it worked the first time. 3, 1, 0. Blah, 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 enter. All updated now. 4 reflects correctly. 0 reflects correctly. Oh, but because I'm manually going back, it's refreshing state. So like, because we unmounted that component from the DOM and switched to a new component, it lost its state. So check it out. Right now, the chirp screen.jsx component is mounted on the virtual DOM. So if I add to it, it recalls this information right here. So if I click on chirp link 0, it navigates to a new path, matches it, loads a new component. So chirp screen.jsx unmounts in the DOM, which is actually a lifecycle you could do, component will unmount. And then single chirp is mounting to the DOM, and it looks for a component will mount and other stuff like that, life cycles. So when I click back, we're remounting chirp screen to the DOM, and as you guys know, when it mounts to the DOM, it runs component did mount and resets the array back to the old version. Yeah? I mean, obviously in our example, it will always reset to this, but an API is a bit more static. So it won't, you know, obviously you won't be like writing over your stuff over and over and over again. But for our current example, that's why that's happening. So we click on this, we get ID 0, and if we do go back, it's back to the original array without the thing we just added. So if we did submit a new chirp, like so, you typically send it off to a server that stores it in a database. And then when this thing remounts, it does a new API call that has the new chirp added to it, sets a new array, and your array updates as you go along. But for our example, because we hard-coded our array and component did mount, it makes a new instance of this every single time we come back to that component, and it remounts to the DOM and runs this code again. So that's why it's not remembering things we're typing in over time. But nevertheless, you guys now know how those links work and how this parameter right here can be brought into a child component for some funsies. You can have multiple parameters on if you want, by the way. It doesn't have to be just one. You can chain them on. Let's change this back to ID. And then that means we'll have to change test params, I believe, from pizza back to ID as well. There we go. You can also do something like this, ID/name, or slash another optional parameter called name. I'm actually wondering what I'll do now that I've messed it up. So we'll do chirp 0 with the name of Luke. Well, it worked, but I didn't actually log Luke anywhere, did I? So let's go to our single chirp. And we'll do something like this. Props.match.params.name. Right? Here, we'll do something like that to make, I'm just making it easier to read what's going on. So like it's going to say chirp name/ID, and then below it will say name/ID to make sure it's making, oh yeah, there you go. And I'm not going to do that for us. That's how you have multiple optional parameters. Now at this stage in the game, you're probably wondering why am I going to bother with this? It is important to know, especially when you're coding your own APIs that might respond to where they can query a route that returns all chirps. They can talk to another route with an ID and have just that chirp pop up, right? And that's just like the way these things are developed. There's always a route to get everything and a route to get one thing. And if you can get one thing, you can edit that one thing or delete that one thing. And that's where the power and the parameters come from. So if you passed in chirp/0 to Luke's API, it knows that if you go to chirp/0, that means look in the database for a chirp that has ID 0 and return that information. And if I return that information, you can have an edit button or a delete button attached to it that also does that kind of stuff into my database. And that's where the usefulness of parameters is going to come into play. Okay. So let's take another step back and try something here. We have chirp screen. We have display hello. Let's add a new, like a nav bar that lets us go between our test screen and our chirp screen. Because we don't want a button that goes to an individual chirp on a nav bar, because that doesn't make any sense, right? We want the individual chirps to take you to an individual chirp. We don't want a nav bar button that says go to chirp ID, type it in. No one's going to know that. So back to Bootstrap. We want ourselves a nav bar, which I hate these on Bootstrap because they are like 50,000 goddamn divs deep, as you can see. Where's just a simple one with like a couple links? I just want a simple one, won't it? Yeah. And oh boy, this is going to be dumb. So we're going to make a new component. And we're going to call it navbar. Surprise. Navbar. Import. I hate React for this. Import React from React. const. This is not going to do anything with state, or we're going to assume it's not anything to do with state. So we're going to start as a functional component since they typically load quicker. Get our boilerplate set up. Oh my fam. There we go. Return some amount of JSX. Pretty good start, I'd say. You know what? I always said let's test small steps first. So I'm an navbar. Good to go. I'm going to close down the rest of the stuff at the moment because we won't need it until later. I don't want it just up there confusing everybody. Okay, now we're down back to simple. So here's another fun part that's going to mess up on us. Let's import it because we need. That's what we have to do in order to access it from this directory /navbar. And we want it to be just somewhere in here. Doesn't matter where. Let's just put it right here, the top of our page.
So it doesn't matter where you put it, like in regards to
the switch.
It has to be in the router or the switch.
The things inside the switch are always going to be the routes only. The navbar can be above or below it.
Okay.
But there's going to be a problem, which we're about to run into.
Okay.
Son of a bitch. Our router may only have one fucking child element. God damn it, React. So you know what that means? Either wrap it in a div or wrap that shit in a fragment. Dang it. No, stop it. There. Wrap it all in a fragment. Auto format. So now router, kind of like any JSX component, can only have one child component. And because navbar and the switch were sibling components, it threw that fucking JSX error. So then we wrapped it all in a fragment to stop that from happening. Now let's try. Booyakasha. And like I said, it does load top down. So if we take navbar away from there and load it below the switch, it's down at the bottom of the page now. Because it matched the home path, or it matched the chirps ID name path, because that's what we still have up here for some reason. And because it matched this, it loaded single chirp, the Jumbotron, then it came down here and loaded the navbar, and that's why it's on the bottom. Make sense? Because I didn't know that. I didn't know I could do this shit. I thought the router and switch had to be just by themselves. And then I looked at someone's code literally a week ago, and I was like, oh, fuck, I can do that? I had no clue, and I've been doing this for 2/3 of a year, guys. 6. Let's get rid of this garbage. It's not necessary anymore. We're gonna have it just be down to ID. We're gonna again just make it simple. Let's go back to the home route. Okay. Now let's start filling out our nav bar so it makes a bit more sense than that. But like I said, we had made a small change and we're gonna test it to see how it works before we overcomplicate it. Just play around with it. I tried to break it. We broke the code. We fixed the code. And then I showed you 2 different variations of what you can do. So we did this with an incredibly simple component. Now we're actually going to make it more complicated. By not doing that, damn it, this is the one. Yes, copy, paste. Oh my God. Select all these classes, turn them to name. I'm hoping that's all of it. Format the code. It returns one nav element as the parent element, so I'm not stressed about having a fragment. Let's just see if it worked. Uh-oh. All right, you bastard. Well, something failed. Something's fucked up with the nav bar because it doesn't like it, does it?
Wasn't it? Because didn't you say on the hrefs it can't have the pound sign and
yeah,
and all the A's have to be converted?
Probably. Son of a bitch. That's gonna be a pain in the ass. I can't highlight all the anchor tags, can I? So I do this. Yeah, I can do that, I guess. I'll have to import link as well because I won't know what link is. There we go. Import link from React Router DOM. End story. Auto format. Now we're going to highlight every href and change it to be, we'll make everything lead back to home just to make it really, really easy and obvious. We don't care about this current thing because we're not going to bother updating that garbage. All right. Now let's see what happens. Still nothing. Why you do this? It returns one element. There's navbar. Should load home, which is the test component, which I don't think we've changed, have we? No, should say that. The navbar worked just a second ago. Still in return statement, still in the const navbar, export it, but is not liking something. I wonder if the hamburger bar thing is messing it up, the one that scales. Getting rid of that. Nope. All right, I'm gonna remove all that shit again. All right, boys, what do we fuck up? What did I fuck up, rather? You didn't do anything. Import navbar from navbar, right? Right. Exact path slash test. I wonder this. I bet it's this. I don't know why it would be, because it's not loaded in the DOM. Nope, didn't fix it. It's in the fragment, above the switch. Navbar, lowercase, navbar, lowercase. Well, and always fun, we're going to fucking close the server down and restart it and see what the hell happens now. Because it looks like I froze it somehow, because I can't even close out of this. It's not like I did an infinite loop, did I? I'm not even doing any loop. Nope. Y'all seeing anything? All right, we're closing entirely out of Chrome, which seems to be frozen now. I can't even force quit this sucker. Evidently, my nav bar was just too fucking fire for the screen to handle. All right, let's try that again. One more time. Of course, now I'll just say WTF and nothing else, right? No, don't restore. Please, God, don't do that. All right, code. All right, punk-ass code.
Oh, the life of a developer.
You see, you never get away from it. If that makes y'all feel any better or worse. Hey, all right, boys. That was aggravating.
I still want to know what the issue was.
We will not need the last two because we only have currently 2 places to go that don't require a specific route. Slash is the home screen that just says, oh my fucking God, on my new screen. Or we can go to slash chirps, which is the chirp screen. So let's do that. Home goes to home. We all agree that works. Slash chirps will be a link that says slash chirps. All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
Nice.
Nice. Everything still works as expected. So imagine you had a list of films. Each film had a specific ID, like film ID 1. If you had a map through array and you clicked on film ID 1 and you went to a single card page, which is the Jumbotron, you have a film ID. And let's say you had an API that had what's called an endpoint of like slash API slash films slash ID. And if you did that with the number 1, you get that 1 film back. You can make that call and a component did mount. For example, back in, where is it? Test params. We've made this into a single chirp. Now, if we wanted to access component did mount, we're going to have to upgrade this fucker. So let's do so. We're going to do component fragment. It's no longer going to be just a basic function. It's going to be a class called single chirp. Oops, excuse me. Burps after the chili. It's going to extend the parent React component. The return needs a render function wrapped around it. Format, no red underlines. Let's go check. Oh, because I changed it to a class-based component, it doesn't know which instance of the component this is. So we have to do this dot props dot match dot params dot ID. Fuck. Boom. It's upgraded. So now we have access to the lifecycle methods, right? So let's say we do this. Component will mount or something like that. And in here, we might do some kind of API call. API 2. And as an example, we're going to do template literals. It's commented out. So just let's do it in the console log. That'll make more sense. This is the API call. They'll be like in quotes. Right, except this is going to be a console log for demo purposes. So we had an endpoint on our API that we could find an individual ID with. So we would do something like do a fetch to the following URL. It'd be like https:// I don't know, herokuapp.com. Actually, I think it'll be, I have an API actually that I've built that I'm going to be building anyway. Like loopprojects.herokuapp.com, something like that. I have an API route that takes a chirp, so to speak, that has chirps. And if I do chirp / an ID, I get that specific ID. So template literal. And remember how we access that ID? This dot props dot match dot params dot ID kill me. That there is our API call. If we had a fetch call wrapped around this, it's going to make a call to this API and see what the response is. And there it is. Well, I can't get it because I don't actually have that written, but I think I can actually find out what it was. What was my API? Or my API is broken. Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, see? So this is stuff I made after the class. I built my own API that does some testing for me. So like I can build a blog in multiple languages, and I don't have to worry about building the backbone for it because I have it done. All I gotta do is figure out how to access this stuff in whatever language I'm trying to code this in. So I've actually remade part of my blog in C# now. And so like I said, this is the endpoint I've exposed. So if I go to luke'sprojects.herokuapp.com/API/blogs/all, I'm afraid to see what. Now I haven't actually used real blogs. It's been test data, but I'm also still afraid what the test data is going to be. So ready? Okay, not that bad. You know? And watch this. So like you have /blog/all. So I program that myself. Then when I add in the word all, it finds all blogs for me. I also have one for, get single blog post, API/blog/ param ID that I coded on the back end, the same shit we just did in the front end. So /API/blogs/one blog post. You know what? How much of in a rush you guys are right now? Because I'm beginning to run out of time. I have to still help Robin. I have to go get my fiance. I have to come back here for the art walk. But let's build out a quick thing that renders my blogs. How about that? And I'll show you guys. Yeah, let's do this. Let's do like a real API bullshit. None of this garbage anymore. So we're going to have a new link that goes somewhere. I'm going to do this fairly quickly. If nothing's making sense, speak out. Show Luke's test blogs. We're going to call it /blogs. Now, this is not the API call. Remember, this is the one we are programming in our routes. I'm going to call it blogs. So test this. It works, but it's not going to lead anywhere. Well, that's strange. It stopped matching it /, which somehow loaded this component, which I have no idea why. Why did it go to chirps? /blogs. Yeah, that's what I thought. Nothing. Cool. So /blogs we haven't programmed yet, but the link works. So navbar is now done. Back to app.jsx. It's just going to be some generic route. Doesn't matter where it is, unless it causes a problem, in which case we'll just get lazy and do exact path. Most of the students have all just done exact on everything just to make it dumb simple and not have to worry about organizing these routes. /blogs. Component. Let's make it go to test just to make sure we have now wired up our route correctly. /blog should complete to, oh my fucking god, my new screen. Confirmed. Yeah? 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 All working. Hooked up. Guess what? We're fucking done here at the moment. Done here. Moving out. We're going to make a new, actually we're not done in app.jsx. We have to wire up a new component. We're going to call it allblogs.jsx. Import. React. Now, because we're going to be doing an API call and getting a dynamic list of blogs that might change over time, that probably indicates we're going to have to wire it to state and not have it just exist in the ether. So, component, fragment, from React. They're going to have some link tags on them because they're going to be in cards that do some shit for us. So we're going to need React, router, DOM, link tag, check, class, all blogs, extends, component, render, return, add semicolons, export, default, all blags. Just return, just a quick test. Blogs test. Looks pretty good boiler to me, boys. Back in app.jsx, we're going to change this to all blogs, which we'll have to go up here and bring in now. Import all blogs from this directory. All blogs. Cool. Wired up. What do we get? Got it. Quick, simple. Okay. Now, back in here. Now I'm going to fuck with this at the moment. Here's what we're going to do instead. We're going to have state, which means we automatically type the words constructor with some props, potentially, super, some props, potentially. It doesn't matter if they're there or not, but if we do pass props down to all blogs, we'll need it there. Just keep that in mind. This .state is going to be a JavaScript object of some kind. Boom. There's our boilerplate for accessing state. If you have to write state, you just write that shit naturally. Don't think twice about it. It's going to be some kind of data array. Let's call it data array. Surprise. So when we navigate to this component and right before it mounts to the DOM, I want it to do an API call to my API, get a response, and make it a readable response. So let's fucking do it. I've been saying with comments what to do, right? Component will mount. It's going to be a method that does some kind of API logic. Here's what you do. Fetch. Now, when you learn about RESTful APIs, they have 4 methods. Get, post, put, delete. Get gets information. Post, add information. Put, edit information, specifically to an ID, because you want to edit one thing at a time and not a bunch of things. Delete. If you can't figure that out, you might have to take a different course. Anyway, we have to do a fetch, which by default, without any other specifications, assumes it's going to be a get request, as in fetch and get information. You can make a fetch post. You can make a fetch fetch post, fetch put, and fetch delete. But you have to specify them as arguments, which I'll let y'all play with later. But for now, we're going to do a fetch just get request, basic ass shit. And the route to it was going to be, that's our base URL. It's going to be a string / API / blog / all. Boom. Double, there we go. Fetch is a promise, AKA we can chain a .then onto it. Then, whatever the response is, okay. The response, we're going to translate, it responds in JavaScript object notation, AKA JSON. The JSON has double quotes around the keys and strings. That's how you know it's a JSON. So it's not a JavaScript object. It's called JavaScript object notation. Now, React doesn't know how to render JSON. The console developer log, the terminal, does not know how to console log JSON files. So we have to transform this guy into something readable by our code. Okay? We do that by do the fetch request. Whatever the fetch request responds with, when it does that, so that this response doesn't matter what we call it, take that response and transform it by doing response.json. Now we have transformed a JSON object into a vanilla-ass JavaScript variable we can access and use. So let's just do one of these. This is also a promise because it's waiting for the first promise. So this takes some time. This will only run once that first thing resolves. And then we're going to do the next resolution, which will be take whatever our new data is, or let's say transformed data. There we go. That makes sense. Right? And we're going to take that and we're going to console log it. Boom. Easy. We'll do a .catch. Fuck, I messed up the parentheses. I hate promises. There we go. Dot catch. If there's an error, we're going to console log template. Oh my God, fam. There. We're going to console log template literals. Done fucked up. And the error. Format. After promises and that, anyone have any questions on what's going on?
No, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay. Matter of fact, I'm needing the dots there because I know that it's kind of weird. JSON is not a JavaScript object. They're two different things that look very similar. But because JavaScript is one scripting language, you have a JSON object that other languages can also interact with, and they have methods that can transform them into local variables. So .json is just taking a generic JSON response that looks like an object and transforming it into an actual object that we can then do. If it's an array, we can do .maps on it. We can do object.keys. We can do all that JavaScript stuff that we know now after this step. Cool. So let's see what happens. Oh, it failed. You done fucked up. Type error. Failed to fetch. Fetch is defined but never used. What failed? No access control allow origin headers present on the requested resource. Origin show now access. Son of a bitch. Hold on. Oh man. I know I should have picked a better API. So I don't have cross origin on my personal project because I didn't think I was going to have to do this ever. But my personal project does not have cross origin put into it. So it only allows API requests from within itself and not from another program like this fucking guy. So that was a huge fucking bomb. I got an idea though.
Can we just find another API and
Yeah.
implement the URL? And it should work.
Here we go. Right here. Fake online REST API for developers. Of course. Here we go. 100 posts. This is what they look like. They have a title, they have a body, they have an ID, and they have a user ID they're tied to. This is the same thing I had, just a bit more complicated, right? Can we all agree on that? And they have cross-origin browser capability. So all we have to do is go back here, change this route to this, and it should fetch that, transform, again, the JSON object, which happens to be an array of JSON objects, right? Because you can see the double quotes and the keys. So I transform this whole thing into an array of normal JavaScript objects that we can map through. Fucking A. Let's try again. There it is. 100 posts, just like it said on the page. We got it, boys. We got it. So guess what? Instead of just doing a console log, let's do this. This dot set state. Boilerplate for that. Set state, parentheses, curly braces. We have a data array. Oh, my fam, what just happened? Yeah, let's do that. There we go. Data array. And we're going to set it to whatever transformed data is. Yeah? We all following?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So now we have our transformed array, which is the console log that's now gone. The response is now turned into a JavaScript object and set into state. And when this thing makes the fetch and the state is set, it will refresh and re-render. But we had nothing dynamic happening there, so obviously nothing occurred. So check this out. Remember last time I mapped through inside of the render return? Let's make a helper method that does it for it this time. So this dot render blogs. Okay? It's going to be a function. It's weird. Why doesn't that want to work? Because it doesn't exist yet. Render blogs. It's a function that will, oh my God, that will do some shit for us. Why does no work? I'm actually perplexed as to why it's throwing me an error here.
Did you forget your error notation on render blogs? Don't you have to have the error notation?
No, because it's not a callback function. It's not waiting on a click. I just want it to run right away.
Okay.
Right? But I don't know why it's not working. Render blogs, property this any. Maybe I do need to bind it. Maybe that's why. This dot render blogs equals this dot render blogs dot bind this. Nope. Well, fucking the hell, kiss my ass thing. Are you serious? Why has it always got to backfire, y'all? I'm just saying. It's not even breaking out of the JSX. Y'all see that? Like, they're not turning blue like they should be. That still works. What? All right, fuck it. We're going to go with that then. Oh, yeah, now you fucking know what it is, don't you? Don't have an answer for that, but I'll investigate for you guys. Why I didn't want to return, so I should just sit there and do nothing, right? Right, okay. So, render blogs will do one of these. Return this dot state dot data array dot map. Each individual blog post will be a blog because it's an array of blogs, plural, which makes sense. We're not going to worry about the index at the moment. We're just going to do a return function. And it has, if it returns some kind of JSX, it has to be in a tag. Matter of fact, we're going to put this in a div. Maybe that's what I didn't like about it. Yeah, we can't just have that fucking tag sitting there. It has to have a parent level fucking element that returns. Because it doesn't know to return this because it doesn't know what it is. But it can return an empty div until this actually runs. That's why it didn't work. It's just by itself. Okay?
Okay.
Kill me. It's going to be a bunch of H1s to keep it really simple. Let's go look at the response. Everything has an ID. Let's keep it simple. ID. So each blog is an object that has an ID. So it would be blog.id, fucking A, wrapped in these. Oh, man. You all ready?
Yeah.
Format, make it clean. I didn't pass the fucking key. God damn it. Well, you know, whatever. We have, strangely enough, a fancy little card component already that will take a prop called chirp and have an author and a text. Would you guys want to try and reuse this guy with the same keys and props, or props rather, or just try and create a whole new component? It's up to you. Because we can reutilize this code. I mean, that's the point of thinking component-based. Or if it's going to be too weird, we can create an entirely new component called like blog cards or something like that.
I don't care.
Okay. We'll keep it simple then. Blog card.
Okay.
Blog card. So this is what an individual blog card is going to be. And we're going to copy and paste some code here to make it simple. Right? We're going to comment the link out for now because I'm not going to bother doing any programmatic going around yet. We're going to change this name to blog card. It's going to receive some kind of props from above. Export default, blog card. Instead of a chirp, it's going to receive an object called blog, singular. Blog, singular. We have to match these with the response, which will have a title and a body. So this will be title. This will be body. Cool. That should be fine for now. So we'll close this out. Blog card will stay there for now. App is done at the moment. All blogs, however, instead of just returning this shit right here, we're going to import at the top here. It doesn't matter where we do it. I don't know why I did it right there. There. Import blog card from this directory / blog card. So I'm designing this component to just be a dummy component that is a card that renders some information for us. It doesn't do anything any more complicated than that. It's just a helper component, essentially, which will be this guy right here, blog card, right? It'll need a key. Now, earlier I said we did the index to get the key earlier. That's because our test data from earlier on chirp screen didn't have any IDs or unique numbers. Sorry, I was flipping off one of my old regulars at the coffee shop. Their JSON response, though, has a unique ID for each one. So we can use that as a key if we wanted to. So I'm not going to fuck with doing an index up here. I'm just going to say each blog has a unique thing called ID, and we're going to call that the key. But each one's going to pass in a blog prop, which will be the entire blog object. Right? And then the blog card itself should print out the title and the body just like before. You ready?
Let's see it.
Oh, fuck. Each child and an array. I wonder if it's because I added a new... Well, we added new files without any problems earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go. Huh. We can make this better, though, can't we? Okay, there's that part. Then we have to do, what is it, div, what is it, row? So we can make this real fancy if it's not done fucking up. Okay. There we go. Clean, y'all. What I'm saying. I like it. Yeah, that's all their data right there. We coded 2 components that did all that fucking work for us. So now if this JSON API updated with like 15 new blog posts, it just automatically start updating for us. Every time we load this component, it would do the API call and component will mount and get that information. Now, I'm assuming that if we want post/id/1 should return the one that says sunt at. Confirmed. So they have an endpoint that is their API /posts/parameter ID of 1, right? Let's emulate that. So back on our blog card, we're going to uncomment this link. It's going to lead to blogs/ the ID that's handed down, which is on the blog. So props.blog.id, right? Because every blog object had an ID right there, correct? And it will lead to single blog. I'm not going to have that there anymore. Just going to be like a button. So we're going to give this button, and then we'll call it button primary. I think that's right. Let's check what it looks like.
It should be a blue button. Yeah.
Yep.
Hell yeah. Now, it's not going to lead anywhere yet because we haven't programmed the route for it. So back we go. And we'll have to do, guess what, another fucking component. Actually, we might not have to. But typically you do, so we shall do so. So we're now essentially done in all blogs. That shit is now working as expected and no problem anymore. Trip screen's donezo. Blog card is, for the most part, donezo. So let's go back to app.jsx and let's do another path. Blogs/parameter ID will lead to about single blog card. There. We'll make it another Jumbotron and make sure it's like really obvious what's happening, right?
Okay.
So now we have to make another fucking component, and then this will be the end of it. I promise, because you guys have been sitting here listening to me and watching me code like crazy for hours. So we're going to do single blog card.jsx, import React from React. Again, this is a dummy component. It doesn't care what's really happening, so we don't have to worry about importing state as in a component or things like that. Fragment, up to you guys. I like using them. You don't have to use them, though. Const single blog card will receive some props, obviously, because it's going to need something from a top, right, from a parent component. It's going to return some amount of JSX. We're going to export default. Single blog card. I'm going to go ahead and import it and wire it here, just so I don't have to worry about coming back again. Single blog card from this directory, single blog card, done. That should be good. In here, let's test if it's working. Oh my God, why did I do that? Don't do that. There you go. H1, and how about we do something really simple? It's going to be an H1 that is this, nerd props.match.params.id. So whatever blog post we click on should be matching, right? And then honestly from there, I'm not going to bother like filling out the rest of the card because I think you guys will understand what I'm trying to do already.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. 3, 6,
Nice.
57. That's the power. So remember what I told you earlier, if we specify this route, we can get a single blog post. So we could pass the blog post as an object on the match object, or we can do another component will mount and do another fetch call for an individual blog post. So that has to do with state, which I mean, and a component lifecycle, which are only available on React components. So time to fucking upgrade. Component. I always type in component. Always. That's annoying. This changes to class, single card, extends component. Every return is wrapped in a render method. Format looks good. Let's make sure nothing broke. Props is not defined because we didn't construct it. Actually, I have to do this dot props. I wonder if that works actually before I go this far. Let's check this, y'all, shall we? This dot props dot match dot params ID. It worked. What do you know? So you don't need a constructor with the word props or super props in it. It just works. But if you want state, yeah, constructor props. So if I say the word we need state, this is what you should automatically be thinking to type before you even start typing it. And hopefully, like me doing this so many fucking times, you'll have like the boilerplate just essentially memorized when you start typing. You'll start typing away constructor props, super props. Like, oh shit, it's like this is just what Luke did over and over again.
It's already in
So this is the workflow. I mean, Nathan, I know I've kind of droned on, but I'm hoping this is all eliminating some stuff in React for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Hell yeah, man. Because I said I don't want to take up your entire day and you have going back going, I didn't learn the shit all from Luke, that asshole. No. All right. This dot state will be, what is it responding with? One object. Okay, so we'll just say single blog will be some kind of object there. Wait, let's put it in an array. Fuck it. Well, that might fuck up now that I think about it. Object. All right. So now, again, just like we did the API call before, remember I always said put it in a lifecycle method of when it's going to mount. And we're going to do a fetch, single route, except, make that into a template literal. So that's the route, that's the base route, and we have an optional parameter. So, yeah, boy, that's a promise. So we're going to take whatever the promise's response is, convert it into something doable with JavaScript. So you do response.json, then formatted response, testing before we move forward. Honestly, if this works, I'm going to push this code and just call it a day because we're not going to format it again because you'll see what I'm talking about. Formatted response, give it a dot catch because it did come in handy earlier, didn't it? Yeah. When I messed up the first time. Format, there we go. Ready? There it is. ID 57, 57, and it's following information.
There it is.
Let's go pick another random one. Optio ipsum, 84. There it is, 84. Optio ipsum. So now we have successfully done an all blogs component that shows a whole bunch of blogs. That has a child component that maps these cards for us. Each card has a link that takes this blog post ID, attaches it as a parameter on its link dynamically, and when we click on that link, it navigates that dynamic ID up here. We have access to it down here in the child component via this dot props dot match dot params dot ID name, or the parameter name. And then because of that, we can make an API call with the endpoint with that specific fucking ID to get that specific fucking blog's post individually. Fuck. We can have a button on here that also goes back to home, but since we have a nav bar, that circumvents that. There is a web app that we have now made in React that actually does something for us. Holy shit.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's so much work. I know you guys are probably
It's pretty gnarly, though.
gnarly. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm afraid I did go pretty long, but there were so many concepts I wanted to cover. And I was hoping that doing a walkthrough like this with me will help illuminate the workflow, the boilerplate, the syntax, the things I start writing immediately when I'm writing new components. And I'm like, let's break this into something else. Let's break this into another one. Here's where this life cycle works and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I was hoping it would be shorter, but I think both of y'all learned that nothing is ever really short with me when it comes to programming and what I want to teach y'all. But I want y'all to enjoy at least part of your Friday, even if it is just coding by yourselves and poking around my project. Download my project. Come fuck with it, you know? Git add all, git commit.
Because this is what I'm going to be doing all night. I already told the wife. I was like, sorry, babe, you're on your own. She's on vacation for another five days. She's fine.
Git commit, fucking AFAM, git push. Push, let's go double check. Goofy picture. Crack a code with the boys, updated just now. Source, components, all the new stuff's there. So y'all can clone this, npm install, play with it. You can rewatch some of those videos if you want, but more than likely you can use my lab as a reference and finish the other two React labs and move on to Node this weekend. I'm willing to bet both of y'all can.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure I can with what we just watched.
All right, y'all. Happy hacking. Have a great weekend. I'll be available tomorrow evening and pretty much all day Sunday. If you have follow-up questions, if you're like, hey, I'm looking at your reference material and I forgot why you did this, I'll be happy to answer because I didn't leave a lot of Q&A time today because I was rambling and ranting the whole time about React stuff. But I'm here this entire weekend and I will watch my DMs to respond to you guys as fast as I can with React questions.
Sweet.
Yeah?
Sounds good.
All right. Nathan, good to hook up again.
Yep, definitely.
That's our first one back. I'm making up for lost time, right? So I had to ramble on for several hours.
It's all good.
Michael, glad having you here.
Yeah.
Are you staying in the coffee shop or are you headed home?
I can hang around for a bit.
Okay. I'm going to go home and get my fiance and then come the fuck back. All right, coolio. You guys have an awesome weekend. I'm here for you when you need me, all right?
All right.
Happy reacting.